What if one of America's most widely grown commodity crops could solve the food industry's most urgent challenge? Board of Directors, today, our Wisconsin soybean growers are facing tight margins and unpredictable commodity trade policy, many of whom are facing a third straight year of significant losses. Meanwhile, food and beverage manufacturers are racing to shift away from petroleum-based synthetic dyes. This transition is driven by consumers' demands for cleaner labels and increasing federal and state regulations, including the 2025 ban of red dye number 3. While non-synthetic red dye options exist, the truth is they present a whole new set of challenges. For example, beet-derived dyes are much more expensive than synthetic options, are less stable during processing, and are difficult to scale to meet this growing demand. Simply put, the industry needs a better solution. Agricor has that solution. As a vertically integrated seed and grain company with an established food ingredient sales division, we recognized an opportunity. Our southern Wisconsin-based company partnered with researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison to develop a breakthrough soybean variety, 23 Red 73E, that produces the same red pigment found in beets. Using these soybeans, we produce Essential Red, a non-synthetic red food dye that meets the affordability, scalability, and performance demands of modern food production. By using one product, soybeans, to create another product, red dye, we are transforming a widely grown commodity crop into a value-added ingredient. This isn't just a win for manufacturers, though. It creates real economic impact for our growers. At a $3 per bushel premium, Essential Red allows us to return over $21 million in additional revenue for our growers. By combining innovation in the field with demand from the food industry, we are creating value across the entire supply chain. Because at Agricor, we truly believe that the crops we grow today can change tomorrow. Now here's Brian with our market analysis.
The 2025 soybean harvest was the most expensive crop ever, and at that same time, international trade policy slowed soybean exports, resulting in oversupply and reduced profit margins. In fact, soybean growers accounted for nearly 3/4 of the $27 billion of agricultural losses in the recent U.S. trade war with China. Looking at food and beverage manufacturers, legislation passed in 2025 to ban carcinogenic red dye number 3, giving manufacturers until January 15th, 2027 to reformulate their products. Nearly 50% of small to mid-sized companies state the high cost of natural additives as their number one limitation to adoption. And 76% of US adults say that they're concerned about synthetic dyes still being in the food they eat today. Like Lauren said, soybean growers are facing their third consecutive year of substantial losses. Meanwhile, the demand for non-synthetic dye is so great that if all manufacturers made the shift today, supply simply couldn't keep up with demand. This critical issue is where 23 Red 73E's efficiency really shines through, as a mere 0.6% capture of the US soybean market could produce enough Essential Red to fulfill the entire US red dye demand. Now, let's take a look at our market size. On one hand, there's over 435,000 acres of soybeans grown in south central Wisconsin. On the other hand, the U.S. red dye market is valued at over $520 million and expected to grow at a CAGR of 6.7%. Red dye number 40, which is under heavy scrutiny, appears in over 36,000 U.S. food and beverage products. This virtually guarantees that Red 40 will soon find itself on the same chopping block that Red 3 sits on today. This change will open up the entire U.S. red dye market to non-synthetic options, giving us the opportunity to replace the over $8 million pounds of synthetic dye used annually in the United States. Our marketing strategies will target 3 major audiences, the first of which are soybean growers such as Paulson Farms. They're early adopters of seed technology and value reliable sources of income as they look to fortify their operations finances for the next generation. For their information, they rely on their seed sales representatives, social media, industry publications, and podcasts. Our second audience is manufacturers such as Pop Beverages. They source their ingredients through distributors and sell through national retail chains. They're looking for an affordable, reliable, non-synthetic dye to meet consumers' demand for cleaner products. Our third and final audience are distributors such as Incredible Ingredients. They have a nationwide network of major food and beverage manufacturers and need to meet those manufacturers' demand for non-synthetic dye options. For their new product information, they turn to trade associations, trade shows, and their ingredient suppliers. Now, I'll turn it over to Jonathan, who's going to walk us through our competitive analysis.
Essential Red was designed around 4 key competitive advantages. We are US-based, which in turn secures a reliable source of domestic dye, scalable using existing soybean infrastructure to help meet annual demand, and have an affordable supply, helping manufacturers already facing market pressure. Together, these advantages are exactly what the red dye market has been missing. Moving on to our competitors table, Essential Red competes against both synthetic and non-synthetic dyes, with several factors setting us apart. First, Essential Red is produced entirely on domestic soil, critical in today's volatile supply chain environment. Second, while most of our competitors come in at a premium price, Essential Red is penetration priced, ready to capture market share and aid manufacturers still on the fence with non-synthetic dye adoption. Finally, our soybean-based dye enables large-scale production and offers post-extraction commodity value, benefiting both us and our producers. Next up is our SWOT analysis. Essential Red strengths include, again, domestic production, penetration pricing, support for non-artificial labeling, and a closed-loop supply chain, all aligned with what food and beverage manufacturers are currently looking for. Our weaknesses include overcoming a GMO stigma and building trust as a new market entrant. We also do cost more than synthetic dyes. However, this is an industry-wide reality, with many manufacturers having foregone this trade-off as they instead turn towards an affordable, reliable, and scalable non-synthetic alternative, which is exactly what Essential Red is. Opportunities include the continued growth of non-artificial labeling, as well as expansion into new growing regions, seed varieties, and non-food applications, giving Essential Red long-term growth beyond year 3. Threats include crop disease, weather events, regulatory shifts, shadow products, and emerging fermented alternatives. However, Essential Red is ready, priced competitively, and already growing on American soil. With the race to replace synthetic dyes having already begun, Essential Red leads the way. And now to Brooke with our business proposition.
Our strategy is to use existing infrastructure to create a red dye that is scalable, cost-effective, and easily interchangeable for synthetic and underperforming non-synthetic dyes. Recent bans create high demand for our product. Essential Red is well positioned to capture market share as brands reformulate to meet standards and evolving consumer preferences. To ensure Essential Red's success, we have 5 key assumptions. Agricor is a vertically integrated company with divisions in research and development, seed sales, grain processing, and ingredient sales, as well as established processing facilities and distribution. Our soybean variety, 23 Red 73E, is backed by 10 years of research, successful field trials, which provide enough supply to meet year 1 demand, is designed with Enlist E3 technology, and has yields competitive with other top varieties. The only modification in processing this variety is the addition of a pigment extraction step, which does not disrupt existing byproduct streams. Essential Red offers superior pigment intensity and improved heat and pH stability. It is even preferred 3-to-1 in trials against other non-synthetic dyes. And finally, our process adheres to all FDA, HHS, and USDA regulations. Now for our goals expected by year 3. We will capture 16% of the soybean acreage in South Central Wisconsin and 12% of the U.S. red dye market. We will achieve 60% brand awareness for both Essential Red and our soybean variety. And finally, we will achieve financial stability and profit by the end of year 3. Now, here's Emma with our action plan.
Here at AgriCorps, innovation starts at the seed. Through our closed-loop system, we process these soybeans to produce Essential Red dye. Priced at $60 per 50-pound bag and $3,000 per Pro Box, this late harvest variety offers our growers a $3 per bushel premium, a more predictable revenue stream, and an opportunity to drive change. Essential Red dye is priced at $36 a pound in powder form and $150 a gallon in liquid form. For food and beverage manufacturers, Essential Red delivers vibrant color, seamless integration, and scalability at a lower cost than other non-synthetic dyes. This leads us to our tagline: grow today, change tomorrow. By growing 23 Red 73E today, our growers are enabling manufacturers to change how products are made in the future. Now, AgriCorps takes on a two-pronged approach to marketing. The grower campaign is Grow the Change, while we use the Lead the Change campaign to target distributors and food and beverage manufacturers. Today, I'll be taking you through the Grow the Change campaign. In year 1, our focus is on building trust and awareness. In May through October, seed representatives are meeting their growers in the field through AgriCorps plot tours, on-farm consultations, and events like the Wisconsin Farm Technology Days. We reinforce our visibility with field signage and a strong presence across social, traditional, and earned media. Then, from November through April, seed reps shift indoors as they lead grower meetings and sales calls, seed catalog distribution, and conversations at the Wisconsin Corn Soy Expo. Our growers will find additional resources through AgriCorps' website and webinars hosted by WI-Madison researchers. In year 2, we start driving adoption. We continue all previous efforts, but now add something more powerful: community. We create shared grower experiences through field meals and harvest ride-alongs, and through the introduction of 2 grower ambassadors. We also expand into podcasts, meeting our growers where they already consume information. We deepen those relationships as seed reps host grower appreciation dinners, post-harvest follow-up meetings, and we'll share grower testimonials and local yield data. By year 3, 23 Red 73E is a proven staple in our growers' crop rotations, so we expand our loyalty and long-term growth through the addition of a 3rd grower ambassador and by scaling up our traditional media presence with features on these podcasts and publications. We will then host the Grower Appreciation Banquet and distribute holiday gift boxes featuring products with Essential Red dye and AgriCorps merchandise. This is how change begins. Anna's going to show you where it goes next.
Our Lead the Change campaign is designed to position Essential Red not just as an ingredient replacement, but a catalyst for industry transformation. Year 1 is all about building brand awareness and trust. We'll target red dye number 3 users and leverage our existing relationships with manufacturers and distributors. We'll both strengthen relationships and build new ones through direct engagement. This includes sales team meetings, distributor ride-alongs, and a presence at trade shows like the IFT First Expo and the Sweets and Snacks Expo. To build trust, we'll use earned media, be featured in trade publications, and have a sample distribution program. Also, an online presence is important. That is why AgriCorps' website will now have a dedicated Essential Red page, and across social media, Essential Red will be featured. Now, in year 2, we're increasing our impact to target all synthetic red dye users. We'll build off of previous tactics, and we'll add the fancy food show and elevate our social media presence by collaborating with industry thought leaders on LinkedIn. We also recognize that our product is important to consumers. That is why we'll provide consumer education materials to our customers so they may effectively communicate Essential Red benefits to their end users. We're also excited to launch our on-farm connection tours where distributors and manufacturers will have an immersive look at the growing process. This is meant to foster transparency, bridge the gap between our 2 primary audiences, and highlight our closed-loop sustainable supply chain. By year 3, we're not just targeting synthetic red dye users, we're also targeting non-synthetic red dye users. Essential Red will now be the top choice for all distributors and manufacturers. We'll build off of previous tactics, and now we'll host ECRM buyer meetings and collect testimonials, solidifying our product's excellence. To keep building professional relationships and making connections, we will also have prospective client dinners. By the end of year 3, this two-pronged campaign approach will achieve these objectives: improve grower trust and acceptance of 23 Red 73E in Wisconsin, and penetrate the U.S. red dye market to capture market share. Lastly, to bring these campaigns to life, we will add 3 technical support staff and 1 brand manager for the Grow the Change campaign. For the Lead the Change campaign, Agricor will add 4 new sales and marketing professionals to their ingredient sales team. I will now hand it off to Mark, who will go over our numbers.
Essential Red's financials reflect a system designed to scale alongside rising demand for non-synthetic red dye. As that demand builds, the model expands quickly because supply can now scale with it. I'll walk you through our first 3 years. In year 1, Essential Red generates $10 million in revenue, primarily through dye sales and supported by soybean byproduct and early seed adoption. In year 2, revenue reaches $39 million, and by year 3, Essential Red generates over $111 million in revenue, driven by expanded acreage and increased adoption among large-scale food and beverage manufacturers. As the system scales, profitability quickly follows. Year 1 reflects our initial investment phase, with significant spending in marketing, R&D, and the construction of 3 processing add-ons to existing grain elevators to extract pigment. Essential Red then becomes profitable in year 2 and continues to scale into year 3, eventually generating over $15 million with a profit margin of 14%. I'd also like to highlight a few key discretionary expenses. A major portion of our marketing investment is directed towards expanding our sales and support teams, with a focus on grower adoption and creating manufacturer relationships. Research and development also remains a priority. We continue to optimize our soybean variety and processing systems to ensure long-term success as we expand. But the impact doesn't stop at the company level. By adding value to a commodity crop, we give Wisconsin soybean growers the relief they need. Over 3 years, we return over $21 million to growers through our $3 per bushel premium. That creates a strong incentive for grower adoption and aligns grower success with Essential Red's growth. Now Kate will walk you through our monitoring and measuring.
To track the success of our campaign over the next 3 years, we'll look at our goals that Brooke mentioned earlier. We'll measure market share using these reports, media analysis, and brand engagement for brand awareness, and ROI and sales reports for profitability. Our first goal is to capture 16% of the soybean acreage in South Central Wisconsin. Once we have this acreage, we will scale seed production and distribution and expand acreage. If we run into shortages, we will research hesitation points and assess grower premium. For Essential Red, we will capture 12% of the U.S. red dye market. Once we have this market, we will invest in scaling production and processing capacity and invest in other color technologies. If we fall short, we will increase outreach to food scientists, R&D teams, and expand direct sales efforts. Moving on to brand awareness, we will be using these KPI tools to help measure success. For our soybean variety, we will achieve 60% brand awareness. Once we do this, we will shift resources towards lead generation and sales conversion and invest in strengthening relationships. If we don't meet this goal, we will increase field signage, grower meetings, and plot tours, and increase advertising spend. For Essential Red, we will also achieve 60% brand awareness. Once we achieve this, we will shift resources and expand customer segments. If we fall short, we will increase digital advertising spend and reassess brand messaging. Lastly, to our profit goal. Once we exceed profits, we will diversify our growing region, expand contracted acreage, and invest in other color technologies. If we don't exceed profits, we will assess price and premium costs and explore endorsements. Now back to Lauren to wrap things up.
Agricor is committed to making our growers more profitable and food safer for consumers. Essential Red allows us to do just that. Board of Directors, with your approval, Essential Red will allow us to return over $21 million in additional revenue to our growers, strengthening not just their commitment to Agricor, but also fortifying their operations for the next generation. By producing red dye through American agriculture, we're offering a cost-effective alternative to petroleum-based synthetic dyes. keeping production costs lower and food healthier and more affordable for American families. Together, we have an opportunity to deliver something that is not only innovative, but essential. From the farmers growing the change to manufacturers leading the shift away from petroleum-based synthetic dyes, AgriCorps is proving that the crops we grow today can change tomorrow. We now welcome your questions.
Walk me through a little bit on the route to market with the closed loop. How are you getting the beans to the grower, and then how are those beans then getting back? Like, what is your route to market with all this?
We have established seed growers who already make our other varieties. That's how we source the seed that we give to our growers. In our region, we also have a processing facility where we package all of these. And as we mentioned in our assumptions, we have an established distribution process for all of this. We also, when we contract these seeds with the growers, we are signing a contract with them that says we will purchase this seed back for them after they have harvested that. Once we harvest it, we process it at our facilities and produce Essential Red.
So does there need to be a stagger in that timeline in case there's a production fail? I mean, basically, you have year one, does that need to be staggered? How do we make sure that we actually have enough soybeans to do the right dye? You know, how do those all work together? And also, probably part two of that is, how do you continue to make sure you're having simultaneous promotion plans going on at the same time as well? There's a lot happening.
Yeah.
Yes, I can answer the first part of that
Great.
question. And with our first year dye, that will come from our field trials that we have done within our research that we've done in previous years with our acreage and acreage that we have with contracted, with the farmers that we have at AgriCorps already. Some of them have bought into this, so that will be for year one.
Okay.
And then in year 2 and 3, we, even if something happens, we have a crisis plan and able to expand our acreage, perhaps, or we have a seed bank in case something happens where we need more seeds, and we have enough field trials to be able to meet our dye demand.
I'd love to elaborate on that second part with the two-pronged approach. Can you give a little more context of where you're going with that question?
Yeah, I'm just like trying to figure out how we go ahead, and we're marketing two very different things here. We have a farmer audience, and then we're trying to get into major manufacturing. Those require two very different skill sets, very different activities. How are we currently structured to do that? And how do we make sure that, I mean, the soybean part's gonna be pretty easy. How do we make sure we actually get into these other markets? Are we utilizing USB, ASA? You know, how do we create those opportunities to continue to grow that business?
There's a couple key factors to our penetration into the manufacturing market. The first of which is that AgriCorps already has an ingredient sales division and already has relationships with several major manufacturers around the country. The second and arguably more important piece of this is that red dye number 3 has already been banned, and red dye number 40 is facing regulatory scrutiny across the country. If you guys could pull up the legislation slide. As you'll see, there's a list of about 80 bills across 25 states that are trying to ban red 40 right now. And so manufacturers are going to be forced to move away from synthetic dyes. And when they move into the non-synthetic space, we're about 3 to 4 times less expensive than the next cheapest non-synthetic option. So we're the natural choice.
Okay, thank you.
I would also just love to add on to that. In your mention with ASA, our goals throughout the first 3 years are what we can do with our internal team that we already have. But once we expand into other regions and have to rely on people who we don't have relationships with, once we're marketing to them, that's when we'll acknowledge those relationships and connections we have to give more validity to our company and this product, and relying on them to build that trust.
Great, thank you.
Couple of questions here. You guys were very clear about a $3 per bushel premium. What is the break point on soybeans that you can justify that? Like, we know that's not a static price, what beans are selling at. So at what point does that $3 become less than what the price is? Like, how are you all working through that?
If you guys could pull up our dual revenue stream backup slide. With Essential Red, we have a dual revenue stream, as you can see here. So on one side, we're buying back soybeans from farmers, and we're able to generate revenue from selling the byproducts that those soybeans produce.
I'm not asking about our value, I'm asking about for that producer. So he's bought these beans, I'm assuming if something goes sideways, these beans can still be sold into the market. They're not now something that soybean farmer just adds to the pile and can't move. If you've promised $3 more per bushel premium when beans are $8 a bushel, and by the time harvest rolls around, they're 14, is he now gonna get $3 more per bushel, or is it kind of like, nope, sorry, you're out of luck?
So with this dual revenue stream, we can generate money from both selling the soybean and also from selling the dye. So no matter what the price of soybeans are at the time of harvest, we're able to generate enough revenue from the selling of the byproducts that once we sell the dye above that, we're able to give the grower a $3 premium no matter
Even
what.
at that $14
So
price,
regardless of
we'll
the
pay him
price, it's always
$17
the
per
$3.
bushel.
Perfect, thank you.
Sorry for the miscommunication.
No, that's okay, that's okay.
Can you walk us through quickly the process from going from bean to dye? How does that happen?
The beans are first crushed and then they're placed into a water-based solvent. This dye is water soluble, so it is able to be extracted from this water-based solvent. Once it goes out of that water-based solvent, then the beans are dried so they can retain that post-commodity extraction value.
And once we extract the pigment, we have our own proprietary process, which is where we fortify our dye so that it has that pH and light stability, which is not something that other natural dyes are currently offering.
Is that a different process than what's being used right now in beets or other natural dyes?
Yes, we own this process. We have a patent on it. No one else can do what we're doing.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding the processing part of this. Are you all doing all of the processing of these beans, or are they segregated as they go into the market? I'm thinking of the old days of GMO and conventional and keeping them separate. How is all that managed?
This is an identity protected soybean, just as the ones you're mentioning. So we do have to keep them separate from other soybean varieties before they are processed.
Okay.
Once we extract the dye through the process that Anno just walked you through, they can go into all the existing byproduct streams that are currently used with any other soybean variety.
Okay, thank you. I've got a follow-up question. Is there, I think that, and this was in one of the threats, I think, in your SWOT, about if the food industry just abandons use of any red dyes and just walks away from that. I'm thinking of the new Doritos product, Doritos Naked or whatever. So where does that rank on a threat basis to what you all are doing?
We don't anticipate manufacturers and distributors completely abandoning red dye. There is a lot of market research out there signifying that red dye is very important to consumer choosing what food they see on the shelf. In a study done, they had two foods, and one had a brighter pigment, the other one had a not as bright pigment, and over 75% of those consumers preferred the brighter pigment. Also, there is a lot of research out there that since humans have existed, we have always used color to determine the freshness of food, the quality of food. So that is something that is embedded in our DNA. Color will always be necessary in food. Therefore, red dye will always be necessary in food.
Walk me through a little bit more on your marketing mix, your advertising mix that you did, and your difference between going to your traditional farmer and then to your food person. I say that it's kind of lumped together here, so I'm kind of curious of how that breaks out.
For the Grow the Change campaign, we're first targeting the early seed adopters and technology adopters in year one through our social media, such as the Brownfield, Wisconsin Ag News, and the Midwest Farm Report. And then when we go to year 2 and 3 and we're targeting you could say, more traditional farmers, this is when we're really building on that community and trust, and we're reaching them through publications such as RFD TV, Traditional Farmer, Successful Farming.
For the Lead the Change campaign, we have a whole separate team who is in charge of that. So there are already in the year one established relationships with growers. So those 3 technical support staff, that brand manager that's added on, they're there to support those seed sales representatives. But for the Lead the Change, that's separate. We're an ingredient sales team, and we'll have those 4 new sales and marketing professionals because we have such a new product that is going to mean such high demand. Year one, we'll leverage those relationships. We'll build that trust. We'll have a presence at trade shows, making connections, having that sample distribution program. So distributors and manufacturers know they can trust us, and they will buy our product.
Any traditional, oh, sorry.
No, you're okay.
Okay.